Hi, I'm David Zyla, and welcome to episode 2 of Feel Good Beauty. To watch episode 1, please go to the David Zyla YouTube channel. So, what is Feel Good Beauty? I've spent my career helping women feel like the best version of themselves. And when it comes to feeling beautiful, I've discovered that it's not about chasing trends, transforming yourself into an ideal, or even shifting 1 inch out of your comfort zone. It's all about identifying and magnifying the unique, individual, and beautiful woman that you are. So today, we're going to hear the secrets of living a balanced and beautiful life with supermodel and best-selling author of A Healthy You, Carol Alt, creating a home that authentically reflects who you are with acclaimed interior designer Garrow Kedigian, and improving your health with New York Times bestselling author of The Melt Method, Sue Hitzmann. But first, let's take a look at your closet and how to craft it into a working one. Could we go to the first slide? So, the goal in crafting a closet that really works for you is, I like to call it, it's about your closet should represent possibility and putting outfits that you feel good in and that really illuminate you and not impede or be a stumbling block to getting dressed each day. If we could go to the next slide. So what many of us go through every day is not looking at possibility, but rather despair. And let me talk about that. Most people will say, even if they have a full closet, they'll say, I have nothing to wear. I hear this all the time. And the translation that I hear when someone says this is that it could be one of the following. It could be, I have many pieces that I like, but they don't go together. It could be the things I want to wear don't fit or are damaged, or that some shopping mistakes of the past are distracting my eye, or maybe even the clothes in my closet reflect me at a different stage of my life. But if you chose all of the items in your closet, I bet there are some that you love and perhaps overlook. If we could go to the next slide. So what I'm going to ask you to do first, you're going to go to your closet. I want you to set the tone. I want you to make an appointment with yourself, put on your favorite music, maybe even a glass of wine. No distractions, because you want to concentrate on you and wear your hair and makeup as you normally do, that you'd wear to an appointment or to work. Don't wear jewelry other than a small earring, as you want nothing to distract from the clothes in your closet. So then, if we go to the next slide, I'm going to ask you, what you're going to do as you put each piece of clothing on, you're going to put each item in a different pile. And usually using the bed is great for this. And you're going to create piles of yes, no, and maybe. And to help determine what belongs where, if we could go to the next slide, we're going to, there are 3 areas. There's condition, fit, and I like the word reflective. So let me explain them. So condition. Condition is literally what the piece looks like right now. You could say, oh, well, it's a really good pair of jeans. It's like, yeah, but what do they look like right now? What is the condition of them? So condition is, I guess, something that let me rephrase that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Condition should be looked at as, what does it look like right now? And if the item in front of you, if it were in perfect condition, would you wear it? So let's say you have something that's not in quite perfect condition, and you look at it and go, yeah, I would wear that if you know, the button hadn't fallen off or the cuffs weren't frayed, etc. So once you realize that, you need to think about if it's worth repairing it. And if you feel that if you repair it, you are going to wear it, and you're going to wear it a lot, then the cost of the repair, you know, connects with the original cost of the garment. And if you use it a lot, it's probably worth it. But until that point, until you figure out whether you're going to have it repaired or not, I'm going to ask you to take those items away from your closet. They should not be hanging there with everything else. So I'd put them in a shopping bag or a box, and either bring it to the room where you would do a repair, or such as like a laundry room, or put it in the back seat of your car. And that way you're reminded to take it to the tailor or the repair shop, wherever you need to take it. The next category to think about is fit. So I feel so strongly about this. If something does not fit you, it should not be in your closet. It should not be staring you in the face as you get dressed every day. And these items literally are hanging there, teasing you, saying, haha, I'm a beautiful blouse, but I'm too big for you now, and you can't wear me. You know, who wants that? So my suggestion there is take those items out. And again, determine, can they be altered, and is it worth the cost of altering as well? But they should not be literally cluttering your closet. And then the other category is reflective. And this word is really important. You know, condition and fit, I think a lot of us can understand. Reflective is something that takes a little bit more work. So let's say something, you try it on, it fits your body perfectly, it's in great condition, but does it reflect you? Does it reflect who you are right now? It may have when you purchased it, but if right now you look at it and go, yeah, it's just not me, I'm at a different place, you know, then you let it go. However, if it's in great condition, fits beautifully, and makes you feel good, then it's a resounding yes. So then you put that in that yes pile. So as you're doing this exercise, there are going to be some stumbling blocks. So if we go to the next slide. So monetary, emotional, and use value. So this is a category where you cannot beat yourself up about it. You've got to continue to stay positive. The theme of this today is feel good. So monetary, as you look at a garment, you know, and you have to be able to let go of, well, I spent X amount on this piece. An item could be expensive or free, and it may flatter you or not. It's as simple as that. You're not wearing a price tag. You're wearing clothing, and clothing should be thought of as a group of raw materials that showcase you, the wearer. So if you do have something that costs a lot, that isn't reflecting right now, that's not making you feel good, I would suggest a resale option on that, and getting some monetary gain for it. For an unworn item is great to have to put towards something that you love. The next category, emotional. So oftentimes in a closet, like the wedding dress hanging here, we will hang on to things and have them right in our closet. And these emotional, these pieces where we have this emotional connection literally create what I call a clothing museum. And it's not a closet anymore. It's kind of a best hits or best moments of your life. And I'm all for keeping these pieces, but you know, the wedding dress, the college sweatshirt, etc., don't belong right in the closet where you get dressed every morning. You don't have to get rid of them by any means, but put them in a different closet, or maybe even a memory box and store them. And then use. Have you worn the item? Will you wear it? And if you say, well, I will wear it, but I don't have the right thing to wear with it, we're going to discuss that shortly. If we could go to the next slide. Another thing that we often fall into as we're going through an exercise like this is we look in a wardrobe and we see repetition. And do you really need 15 black pencil skirts? Oftentimes, and the reason this happens, and this happens to many people, and the reason it happens is oftentimes we're out shopping and maybe nothing really excites us, and yet we really want to have some retail therapy. And so we will buy a repeat of something that we know works for us, as opposed to a new category or something, you know, a little bit different from what we have. So as a result, sometimes we get a lot of the same item. So this is also this closet clean out right now is also a really good time to look at the repeats, because I guarantee one or two of these, you know, black pencil skirts or whatever it is, you wear constantly and love. And there's probably one that you don't. So maybe it's time to thin out the herd a little bit. If we go to the next slide. So fix or toss. So a lot of those maybes will need a little love. And so the cost of fixing something needs to be weighed with, will I then wear it? If you go to my website tomorrow, Monday or onward, or if you sign up for updates there, I'm going to be posting my full list of what a tailor can and can't do from my book, How to Win at Shopping. So you'll have a whole list of things a tailor can do, things that can be repaired, things that can't be repaired. So I'm going to fill that in a little bit later. So again, if you sign up at my website, I'll give you a whole list to help you decide that. If we could go to the next slide. So the maybe category. This is the hardest one to figure out. So the maybes often have a lot going for them. They might fit well. They might be a great color. You know, the fabric may be a little off. You know, but it may be close to perfect, but maybe it's not quite there. Is it an alteration? Is it a dye bath? Is it shrinking it in the dryer? Or is it, again, going back to, is it a great piece, but you don't have anything to wear with it? Oftentimes I find these maybe pieces that you end up with at this point in cleaning out your closet are what I call focal point pieces. They're not basics. They're not, you know, expected. They're a little bit unusual, and they always need to be the center of an outfit. And maybe you don't feel you have the right things to wear with them. So guess what? Now, even though we're talking about streamlining your closet, we're going to talk about shopping. So these pieces, like these examples here, are these focal point pieces that you don't quite have the right coordinates for. So these pieces are going to generate your shopping list for the season. I'm going to ask you to photograph them and make a list of the items that will allow you to start wearing them. And I ask, listen carefully, don't shop for anything else until you complete these outfits. And if you don't, and they remain maybes next season when you go through this exercise, then I think it's time to transfer them to the no pile, because you're not going to wear them. So if we go to the next slide. So here are some examples of filling in the gaps and making these maybes work. So you see this very focal point pencil skirt, and the two very simple pieces were purchased, a turtleneck and a wrap belt, to complete that look and take it from a maybe to a yes. If we could go to the next slide. So this beautiful satin blazer, something that I find often in a wardrobe, sometimes if you have a more casual lifestyle and you have an item that's in a dressier fabric, oftentimes you won't wear it. You'll say, oh, well, it's like a black tie thing, and I don't really go to black tie events. Oftentimes it's about taking the piece and just dressing it down a little bit. So here's an example of taking a satin blazer and putting it with a t-shirt and jeans to complete that look. If we could go to the next slide. So again, here's that beautiful sweater, and we've put it with a pair of leather leggings and a silk camisole, tying it all together. And a piece like this, when you have multicolor, you have so many options in terms of pulling color out as well. And if we could go to the next slide. So after you have created these piles of yes, no, and maybe, I'm going to ask you to photograph all of the yeses on you. Now, this is probably best done. I hate to ask you to do this a second time, but it's best done if you do it after you fill in those gaps with the maybes, and then you have more possibility. I'd like you to go through your entire wardrobe and photograph you in everything. And I would like you to, as an exercise, try to wear things in different ways. So do you take a sweater and put a button front shirt under it? Do you take a suit that you have and wear the jacket over a dress, and do you wear the pants with a silk blouse? And really try to see how many combinations you can put together. I then suggest, after you photograph all of these different looks, print them out and laminate them and bind them with a ring. And that way you have this really simple flip through Bible to your entire closet. And guess what? It sounds like so much work, but my suggestion is you not do this once, but twice a year. Usually spring and fall are great for this. And I guarantee that if you follow these tips, you're going to have a closet of things that you wear, also known as a working closet. So onward. So as I mentioned, I have some incredible guests with us today. I want to introduce the next one now. Carol Alt was touted by elite model management owner John Casablancas as the model that started the supermodel trend, the next $1 million face by Life magazine, and by the world's press, she's referred to as the first ever supermodel. Since her days as the world's most renowned supermodel, her face gracing the cover of over 700 magazines, Carol has gone on to be a multi-award-winning actor, successful entrepreneur, best-selling author, and the host of A Healthy You and Carol Alt on Fox News. Carol has a doctorate in alternative health studies, created an innovative line of raw skincare, and has written 7 books, including Eating in the Raw 50, Easy Sexy Raw, A Healthy You with Carol Alt, as well as a series on modeling, including This Year's Model and Models Inc., all of them New York Times bestsellers. In addition, she's a lifelong health advocate, animal welfare activist, and champion of military veteran causes. Please welcome Carol Alt.
Wow, David, I hope I can live up to that introduction.
I'm impressed, and oh my God, you don't ever sleep, clearly.
Well, I sleep just enough. Beauty rest, beauty rest. Hey, I wanted to tell you something. I was listening to your closet for a working wardrobe, and you know, one of the things that happens to me,
what?
Too many choices.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, you know, and you know what? That's a problem that I say is, that's a tough one. But it's also a good one. It means that you have possibility in your closet. But what I would say is, if in that case, I would say, make it a point to rotate. You know, when you're going to a party, if you say, well, I've got all these dresses I could wear, but you always seem to go to 1 or 2 of them, maybe you go down the line and wear a different one. You know, try to spice it up a little bit. I also find that sometimes taking items that you wear a lot out of the closet, where you get dressed every morning, and putting them in a different closet, putting them like away for a season.
Oh, you mean to force you to do new things?
Exactly. exactly. So I can't imagine what your closet looks like.
No, I thin my closet out quite often. I donate lots of things because I don't want something like a coat sitting in my closet if it could help somebody keep warm. So I go through my closet all the time. I donate at 124th Street to St. Thomas to Sister Mary up there. I sell stuff online. I mean, I just get rid of everything. I've only got, it's funny because I've got 4 coat closets, which is kind of ridiculous, but I have some pieces that are just archive pieces that you just don't get rid of. So I do save quite a lot.
Excellent. Well, you're doing it already. Excellent. So Carol, before we talk a little bit about your wonderful secrets on living a balanced and beautiful life, let's chat a little bit about your modeling career. And I'm wondering if you might tell us a little bit about the steps of getting that first job, what that shoot was like, and maybe what you learned as well.
Well, it was weird because I was waitressing, and a photographer came into where I was waitressing, and he said, "You should be a model." And I was like, "Nah, it's not really for me. It feels so scuzzy, like somebody takes your photo and you never see it." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. You'll see it. You'll be able to look in magazines. It'll be there." And I was like, whatever. And then my boyfriend broke up with me. And I said, I don't want to be on Long Island when this guy comes home from college and I'm the girlfriend he left behind. So I took the number. I called Elite. I called Ford. I called so many different places. And I went in, but 2 of the places wanted me to sign a contract. And my father said, "No, you're not signing a contract because that means you give 20% of everything you earn. That includes your waitressing fees." So Elite was really the only company that said, "No, it's a handshake." And I have worked on a handshake with just about everybody since. My manager is on a handshake. All my agents are on handshakes. I mean, of course, not my clients, but all my team, everybody, knows my handshake means that we're in business together. So, the first day I went to work, now this was a test that you have up there. And that was, what I loved about that was they straightened my hair. I had really curly hair. So I was really happy to have straight hair. But John Casablanca said, "Well, you're a little too fat." I was like, "You're kidding." He's like, "I want you to lose some weight, but I like this photo, so I'm just going to airbrush out, some of your thickness on your legs." So I can't say that this is all me. This was part airbrushed. The first day I shot, I mean, literally the first day I went into the agency was the first day I shot. I went home, they called me and they said, "Tomorrow go in and see Italian Bazaar." And that's, I think, the next slide you have. Nope, keep going. The one with the leopard hat. Keep going. Keep going. That one. So this Harper's Bazaar with the leopard hat, I went in to see John Stember at the John Stember Studios at Carnegie Hall. It was very cool going backstage Carnegie Hall because, I used to go in the front and here I was in the back where all the studios were. It was very neat. And the editor looked at me and said, "Thank you for waiting, but you're too big for our clothes. Your hair looks like oops. And who the hell plucks your eyebrows?" And yet the photographer made me stay because they were short a girl. And the minute I got on the set, she just stopped everything. When I walked off the set, she said, "You're coming to Italy with me for the collections." I went to Italy, and this Harper's Bazaar cover was my first cover, and it was for Italian Bazaar. I literally shot it the first day I started working.
Wow. Wow.
So that was my first day of work. You see it right there.
So as a model, you have worn probably every major designer, I'm guessing. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious, do the clothes you're wearing inform the work?
Always, always, even when I was acting. And it was funny how you talked about having things in your closet that don't reflect you. In my contracts, I was allowed to take my wardrobe, especially my underwear, my bras. That I didn't want to give up after somebody tried to sell my underclothes on a corner in Europe one time. I made sure that anything I wore, I got to keep. So I had tons and tons of wardrobe. And certainly it doesn't reflect me as a person, but as a character, I am informed by how my stylist sees me. So when a stylist says, okay, if I'm playing Anna Karenina and they take me to Sarli to have an entire wardrobe made, I know who this woman is by the clothing that she's wearing. I know what echelon of society she is. I know how stiff and upper class it is and how you can't move and can't breathe in the clothing. So for me, I absolutely got character out of everything that they put on me. It's funny, David, because yesterday I shot a video for Gay Pride Month. It was wonderful. It was so much fun. But, you know, I went from me with my curly hair. I posted it on my Instagram at Model Carol Alt. I started with like really curly, fuzzy hair, and then we went all the way across to the rainbow colors and my hair straight and the rainbow ribbons in my hair. And, you know, I start out like, okay, and then I'm like, I'm all fabulous because I'm done up. So yes, I mean, it absolutely creates your character for you. It's so much fun. Clothes are everything. And by the way, having no clothes sometimes is everything too. As you can see in two Sports Illustrated covers.
Carol, what do you attribute your success to?
I think it's really a love of what I do, a desire to create and innovate, the ability to change. You have to be a chameleon. You have to move with the times. You have to sometimes stay ahead of the wave. You have to constantly be aware of other people. Whenever you come to the studio, you have to bring something to the party. I was in the studio with a lot of girls who were so unhappy to be there and so negative and nasty. And I'm thinking, this is the best business in the world. You're coming to a major party in the studio. I mean, yes, we're working, but it's social. You're talking and you can try on all amazing, fabulous clothing, and you're miserable. Like, just stay home. If you're not going to bring anything to the party, don't come. So I always wanted to make sure that people enjoyed working with me, but I always worked very hard to make sure that whatever was their desire to get their schedule for the day, that we got it done. And I stayed till the very end. I wasn't greedy. I never charged overtime. A lot of girls did. My clients, they kept coming back to me. So I always said, you know, okay, it's 6 o'clock, we're an hour over, but I'm not, why would I charge you? And they appreciated that. I've had many a client come to me and say, can you believe that girl charged me for a half an hour and you didn't charge me at all? And I'm like, you know, you're my client. We work together a lot. I appreciate your business. So, you know, appreciation. There's so many small little things that going into, you know, not just modeling, but being any really good business person, you have to be appreciative. You have to be creative. You have to move with the times. You have to do all these things. When I made these posters here that you're showing, John Casablancas didn't want to do them. He'd had a bad experience with posters and he said, I don't want to do this. And I turned to his vice president. I said, well, how do I do this? And I had to hire a manager, which no models had at the time. I put together the team that shot these. And I just, for me, it was because, I always say it's because I was born December 1st. I like being the first to do something. So it was a lot of fun to create these things. And then Monique Pilar said, you know what? Every girl in the agency who's in the elite division deserves to have a poster. And she made posters for everybody, but these were the original. And that was a lot of fun doing it. And then when everybody did it, I moved on to, you know, doing calendars. And then when everybody did that, I moved on to doing exercise videos. I mean, you just got to keep moving. You just got to keep moving, David. I'm enjoying these comments, by the way. You guys have been really, really kind to me in your comments. I see every comment coming up. Thank you so much.
We all love you.
Oh, that's very nice.
So, Carol, you know, you've had a long career. You've done all of these incredible things. You've given back profoundly. I'm curious, what are the secrets to having a balanced and beautiful life?
You know, it's very hard to have a balanced life, but I think one of the main things that I learned throughout all this was that my diet became the most important thing. My health was the most important thing in my life. And when I lost that, I had to dig myself out of a hole and come back. And it was a long, hard journey. And I get emotional. I thank, you know, the late Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez and of course, Dr. Timothy Brantley for saving my life. but I tried to pay it forward with my books. My books were not about money for me. My books were a labor of love to pay it forward to other people so that they could learn the miracle of food that I had learned, that what you eat is so important. It forms not just your health and your immune system, but it forms your spirit and how you think and how you act towards people. When you're hungry and starving and trying to stay thin, every cell in your body screams out, and people can feel that desperation. I remember after 2 months of going raw, like the first 2 months, I was walking on the street and people were smiling at me. And I'm like, what the heck? Why is everybody smiling at me? Like, do they recognize me? Like, what's happening? You know, and I realized it was because I was smiling. I was just walking down the street. I felt so good. I felt so happy. I felt so satisfied, and you know, everything had changed because I changed my diet. So yeah, the raw eating in the raw 50 and easy, sexy raw, and especially a healthy you, which came off of my show, was just me trying to pay it back. Off of the books where Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez wrote the forward, I donated money to his alternative cancer research. It was very important to me that, you know, other people get the same help that I had gotten. So, you know, the books were just my way of saying thank you to the people who taught me. And by the way I was thanking them was by paying it forward to, even if I saved one other person with this information, that was what I was setting out to do. Food just forms everything. And I'm looking at the pandemic now, and this 5G that's coming in, which really attacks the body. And it's going to be the people with the strongest immune systems that will survive this in a good way. And, you know, that has everything to do with food, David, everything to do with what you put in your mouth. Food is the most potent medicine you will ever, ever have. And thank you, Catherine, for all of your comments here. I see them.
Carol, what, in terms of food, what do you think most of us are doing incorrectly?
Too many sugars in the forms of breads and pastas and packaged foods that have a lot of chemicals in them. We buy things instead of making them ourselves. I mean, when you go to the store and you buy a guacamole that has like all kinds of citric acid and other kinds of things in it that, you know, you shouldn't be eating, when you can go and get a couple of avocados, a couple tomatoes, a couple of, you know, onions, and chop up and have your own fresh, wonderful, delicious guacamole that's, you know, good for you and full of very good fats, you know, then we're doing something wrong. And I get that people don't have a lot of time, but there's so many things, especially in my books, that my books should be in the library. So you could find them probably in your library. I'm not even advocating buying them. I'm just saying, get the information. See how simple and easy this is. You can put salads in the refrigerator at the beginning of the week that you can literally eat all week long.
Excellent. So Carol, what's your definition of the word beautiful?
For me, I have seen some of the most beautiful faces in the world that when they opened their mouth, they were the most ugly people I had ever seen. For me, beauty is a full whole person. It's how they treat others. It's how they think. It's what they think, how they express themselves. The beauty comes from within. And when you hear the beauty, then you see the beauty.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. So Carol, if there was one thing that you would suggest that we start doing today to kickstart our nutrition in
Juicing.
Okay.
Juicing.
Tell us more about that.
Well, you know, we're so malnutritioned. I know that we eat a lot, but you could tell by how heavy most of society is that they're feeling hungry all the time. That's why they're eating. And juicing is the fastest way. If you're not well, if you're hungry all the time, if you're overweight and you want to cut down a little bit, juicing really, or blending, juicing and blending, depending on how good your digestive system is. Juicing and blending really can get a lot of nutrition into the body. I'm talking not fruits, I'm talking about vegetable juicing. Can really get nutrition into the body very quickly. And once you're nutritioned, you are less hungry.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Hear that, everyone. We're going to all juice today.
Yeah.
Carol, I cannot thank you enough for spending some time with us today. How can we follow you, hear about what you're up to, and follow you on social media?
Well, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Model Carol Alt. And of course, I have my website at carolalt.com, which I just haven't been keeping up because there's just so many hours in a day.
And you're busy. So
these days, I was like everybody else, you know, caring for my family, worried about my animals, making sure we had enough food and everybody was safe. You know, there was other things that took my time, but certainly Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, I've been keeping up. And of course, talking with you. This is our second talk, David.
it is. It is. It's like a regular thing now.
And
so
you
Carol,
do such a nice job. Really, you do. It's very good. You do a really nice job.
So much. And thank you so much for sharing with us today some pointers on living a balanced and beautiful life, because clearly you do.
Oh, that's very sweet, David. Thank you so much. Do you mind if I stay and listen to everybody else?
Not at all. Stick around.
Thank you.
So thank you, Carol Alt. Next, very excited to introduce you to Garrow Kedigian. So let me tell you a little bit about him. Garrow was born and raised in Montreal, where he attended the prestigious McGill University's architecture program. After completing his formal education, Garrow moved to Boston, Massachusetts, where he gained 6 years of experience at the renowned offices of interior designer William Hodgkins before deciding to take a bite out of the Big Apple. And he's been in New York City since 2000. After working for several design powerhouses in New York, Garrow established his own design firm in 2001. From his recently renovated Park Avenue apartment, Garrow presides over a wide range of projects, including a large manor house in Lloyd Harbor, New York, a 20,000 square foot barn turned residence in Greenwich, Connecticut, to the multiplicity of apartments and residential projects in Manhattan, residences in Palm Beach, and large corporate headquarters and office spaces in New York. Garrow Kedigian, welcome.
Hello, David.
Hello, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. You're fabulous. We love you.
So,
we do. And Carol's talk was so inspiring.
Isn't she amazing?
She's amazing. We love her.
So Garrow, I thought, one of the things on Feel Good Beauty is that, obviously the way we dress, the way we eat, the way we exercise, all really important. But just as important are the environments we live in.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to ask you first, and we're going to look at some of your beautiful work in a moment, but there are many beautiful homes throughout the world. But what is it, in your opinion, makes a home not just beautiful, but perfect for the particular people that live in it?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think these days, what you're seeing is, a lot of interiors looking very similar. And I always tell my clients, you really want your home to be bespoke. And it has to be a reflection of you, a reflection of your personality. And a lot of my clients come to me now because they know my work and they follow me on Instagram and they know, the kinds of interiors that I create, and they understand that. But when I first started out and I was working for William Hodgkins, who actually did wonderful bespoke work, I mean, everything was really curated and sourced for the individual projects. And, and I still carry that torch that I learned when working at William Hodgkins, is that everything really needs to be not only curated for that specific residence, but curated specifically for that individual. Getting to know your clients. Early on in my projects, I always invite clients to join me on shopping tours in Paris, and I drag them kicking and screaming. They never want to go. And then they always inevitably come back several times afterwards, because even after their houses are done, they want to join me on the shopping tours, because it's just fun. And it's all about sort of getting to know who they are and what their likes are and what their dislikes are. And of course, you know, can I design a beautiful home? Of course I can. And you know, I've designed my own personal residences. And, but it is important for me to get into the minds of my clients and see what their true natural, you know, things that really appeal to them. So that's why I like to take them shopping with me, because I like to see how they react to things.
So let's look at some of your gorgeous eye candy, and wondering if you'll share with us some of the elements of how you created these spaces that were authentic to the people who live in them.
Sure. Well, this is actually an easy room to talk about, because I'm actually in that room now. This is my personal dining room in Montreal. And I'm from Montreal originally, and I always wanted to move back, well, have a house here, not move back. Of course, I'll always be in New York City. But I said I always wanted to have a retreat in Canada. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to purchase this house. And this is my dining room in my house in Montreal. And it really is a good, very exemplary illustration of my work. You know, you see a multitude of layers, and my work is really characterized by layering. I'm not afraid to use color. I use tons of color. And I feel like color is often one of the things in design that is forgotten about. You know, walls. You know, why do people always live with white walls? I often say it, actually decorating a room that's white is harder for me than actually when a room actually has wall color. And I think that that's an important part of my design work, is really using bold colors. My work is very much rooted in the classics. You know, I use a lot of traditional details, but it's always a very modern interpretation. You know, for instance, this crazy modern dining table in the middle of this sort of classic room really sort of offsets your traditional effect. And, you know, and even the wall color in this space, it took me a while to get it just right. But, you know, once you have a wall color that's perfectly calibrated to a room, then, you know, your decorating is half done.
You absolutely got that just right. It's stunning.
And these are actually, the top left is my library in New York, which is a room that I have been missing for so long now. 3 months I've been in quarantine in Montreal. And it's actually one of my favorite spaces that I've designed for myself, actually. And the blue color is very electric. And you know, House Beautiful did an amazing job photographing and you know, illustrating that interior. But when you're in the room, that's when it really speaks to you. And again, it goes back to the concept of understanding color and knowing what colors are the right calibration for the scale of a space, the context of a room, and the context of the room in terms of its orientation. You know, what kind of light comes in. It's very important to me to sort of study a color within a space. And I often get many people asking me on Instagram, oh, can you tell me the color of this room? And I'm like, I'm happy to tell you the color, but you know, you really need to study this color in your space. You can't just transpose a color, you know, from one room to the next. So that's just an important part of my work, that I always try and calibrate the colors to the specific rooms that I'm working in. On the top right is actually, again, my living room in Montreal, which is a beautiful space. The house is a gorgeous Georgian, you know, it's a townhouse that's built in a square of 17 other houses, and the scales of the rooms are just majestic. And as I said, about 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to purchase this house, and you know, it just spoke to me. And you know, it's all about sort of understanding how to design a space that can be formal and informal at the same time, you know?
So
sorry.
I'm going to interrupt you. So to ask a question about what you just said. So creating a space, you said, can be formal or informal. So literally you would probably say that a good design does that. Yes, that can.
Absolutely, for sure. Any room has to be a swing space. You know, you need to be able to you know, sit on your sofa and put your feet up and read a book, you know, or you need to be ready for a cocktail party at any moment. That is especially true in New York City. And actually, it's funny, this slide that you just pulled up is actually an entrance foyer. of a project that I finished on Fifth Avenue. It's in the Sommer Piano Factory, which is a fabulous building, and it used to be a piano factory. And this used to be just an entrance foyer space, and it's for a single executive. And she said, you know, I really need an intimate space in my apartment, somewhere where I can actually sit when I'm not, because the apartment was mainly for entertaining purposes, but she did find herself at home often in the evenings, and she, you know, wasn't entertaining. So we actually created this intimate little sitting area within the entrance foyer, because it was the most cozy space in the apartment. As everything else is just these vast, endless rooms. You know, it was very loft-like. It's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
So that you're actually looking in from the entrance foyer into the living room of that particular project. And, you know, the walls were all basically glass with beautiful fenestration. And she had a significant collection of art. And that was sort of, you know, a fun little detail. She said, you know, you need to find a home for my art. And the idea was to basically hang the art in front of the curtains. And, you know, the contractor wanted to kill me by the end of it. But when it was done, he said it was actually a really great concept.
Well, the unexpected draws the eye, right?
Yes, totally. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's the necessity is the invention, right? That's why you create the invention. So on the left, a beautiful apartment on the Upper East Side, a young family that really wanted sort of a classic flavor, but really wanted to be a little bit more edgy. And when I told her, you know, we're going to paint all the trim black in this apartment, she nearly fell over, but she said, okay, let's do it. And, you know, oftentimes people don't realize how powerful, you know, the reverse of, you know, everybody wants to paint trim white. But when you paint a trim, you know, a color, doesn't necessarily have to be black. It gives the trim, you know, some architecture. It really gives it some power. And I use that in that apartment in many instances to create architecture where there was, you know, limited architecture.
Great.
On the right is one of my favorite projects, actually. It's a library in New York, again, on the Upper East Side, for a very dear client of mine. I love her to death. And she needed, again, an intimate little room to go into, and she has a vast, vast apartment. So this room actually is her favorite room in the apartment, and it's cozy, and she can go in there in the evenings with a good book. But again, at the same time, she does entertain whenever they're watching, you know, the Super Bowl. Like 50 people are piled up in this room. Again, apartments on the Upper East Side on the left is a gracious entrance foyer to a wonderful project that had wonderful, breathtaking views of Central Park. And really the concept there was to try and bring the inside out. And that's often, you know, a big part of my work in New York is trying to make the apartments feel larger and connected to the outside more than not. The house on the right is an entrance foyer for a project in Pound Ridge. It was a beautiful home, but scale and architecture was important. They didn't want to do too much, but the front door, if you look at it carefully, the entablature above the front door is actually mirror because the front door was only as high as the casing above the door, and it looked so mingy to me. And I said, oh gosh, we have to, if we spend any money on architecture, we have to do this, this entablature. And the husband looked at me and he said, I don't know what an entablature is, and I'm pretty sure I don't want one. And then when we were done, he's like, well, I know what an entablature is now, and I'm pretty happy. I'm quite happy that you convinced me to do it. The image on the left is a dining room, also in the house in Pound Ridge, which was, again, a sort of a tricky room. There was beautiful views facing through the space, so I pushed the dining table to one side. You know, many people who follow me on Instagram see that I just love to do banquettes in my dining rooms, only because it makes a dining room a little bit more of a swing space where you can actually sit at a beautiful piece of upholstery and work from your laptop or use it as a desk instead of just dedicating the room as a dining room. That house, they allowed me to go crazy with color, so that was a lot of fun. The living room in that house is actually a bright orange.
So, Garrow, you just used the word tricky. You used the phrase tricky space. What is a tricky space to you?
Well, I think a tricky space is when you have, you know, almost too much opportunity in a room. For instance, that one room we looked at, there was a gorgeous view of the garden, and you would look in from the living room and see that wonderful enfilade view. and I didn't want to block it with a dining table. And even though the room was gracious and large and had the opportunity to have, sort of a classic layout, I said, you know what, I really want to push this table to one side, create a little bit of intimacy, because, oftentimes when people do have sit-down dinners, they're only entertaining, 6 or 8 people, or they're having a big cocktail party. And I wanted, to take advantage of the opportunity to make it, to look at the view. The property, again, was really magnificent. And that was really the tricky part of it. But, I find that in design, oftentimes, I walk through a space and I'm inspired by something, and that inspiration is what tells me what to do. And sometimes I get 1 or 2 inspirations, and that's sometimes the trick, is trying to figure out which one you want to play up and which one you want to play down, and which one you have to ignore. So there's that living room, actually, of that same house. And the client was part of that photo shoot with me. We had actually a blast. She's amazing. And when I first told them, I want to paint the living room as a tangerine color, the husband and wife both looked at me and said, okay.
So, Garrow, what
Yes.
would you say? I'm just looking at some of the questions that came in, but I have a few first. What would you say is the most common error people make, whether they're designing their space themselves or working with a professional?
Well, I always start any project, with doing some furniture layouts, and that's key. And people don't understand that, and they go out and buy, a bunch of things that they would think they're going to stick into their house, and then all of a sudden they spend a lot of money and nothing works. Scale is very important, and understanding, how you're going to furnish your room tells you how you're going to shop for the room. So that's the biggest mistake I find all the time. I always get a lot of clients that have started, and then they call you and they're in a panic attack. And I have a couple of projects like that right now. And you're like, okay, well, why would you buy a round dining room for a rectangular dining space, like a round table for a rectangular space? So just little things like that. I think it's really key to sort of understand your interior, study the layouts, and have the layout that you have, solidified, and then work towards that, understanding size and proportion.
Excellent. And what would you say is the secret of combining the styles of 2 diverse individuals? So how does Hollywood Regency fit with mid-century modern? Who wins?
Actually, those 2 go really well together. But
Okay.
yes, it's so funny, because oftentimes you do have a couple, and the wife has very traditional taste, and the husband has very modern taste, and that clash of minds is finds their decorator in the middle. And oftentimes I tell everyone that if something is well designed, and if you select it the right way, then it can live in the room with other elements that are also well designed. So I always think that even modern pieces, there are classics in modern pieces. And so I'm not afraid to use modern things, as long as they're not trendy. Mr. Hodgins used to always say, you could look at the magazines, but don't look at the magazines. So it's always important to stay away from the trends, make your selections based on things that will be sustainable. And, that is actually one of my things about my work, is sustainability. And, one of my very first projects, worked at William Hodgins, he sent me out to San Francisco for a project that he had done 20 some odd years prior. And he said, we need to gussy up this house. And I walked in, and the house was perfection. I couldn't touch anything. It was so beautiful. Some of the fabrics were worn, but that was the testament to the success of his design work, is that, it just stood the test of time. It still looked as beautiful as it did the day he left, as it did when I went in 20 years later to fix it up.
In designing your own homes, what were the things that were most important for you to include for the spaces to feel authentic to you?
Well, that's a very good question. And I always tell my clients that the first go around when furniture shopping has to be a bespoke layer. So what I do is I do take them shopping, and I like to take them with me because I like to see their reaction to things. And I like to try and find a unique piece, you know, for the dining table or the dining chairs or the, you know, the first shopping go around is actually not to shop in catalogs and things that are available to everyone. I always try and find the pieces that are really specific to their project, their room, their houses. And so every piece of furniture in my house that I have here that's an interesting piece is actually a found object. Of course, upholstery I have made. Upholstery is a little difficult to find, you know, vintage and, you know, period upholstery pieces that are both comfortable and work scale-wise. So upholstery I have made, and I feel like that, you know, that's sort of a modern layer that comes into my work a lot. And it gives that the language of the modern, which is nice. But at the same time, you know, the dining tables or the dining chairs or the end tables or the coffee tables, I like to find unique, bespoke pieces.
Wonderful. And lastly, Garrow, what is your definition of the word authentic?
Well, I think authentic is something that really, again, goes back to sustainability, something that really stands the test of time. So, you know, as a designer, you know, you want your work to be authentic in the sense that when you walk away from it, nobody comes into the house and says, oh, it was just done. You know, this decorator, so-and-so just did it and left. Obviously, it's his style. I, number one, love to have my work to be a complete reflection of my clients and their personality. And I always go that extra length to, you know, go out for dinner with them, drag them shopping with me. I always take them to Paris with me. And I always like to get to know them so that their interior is a reflection of their personality.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Garrow, how can we follow you? And
well, everyone, anyone that follows me on Instagram, thank you so much. And if you don't, you can follow me at Garrow Kedigian on Instagram. And I have a website which is not as up to date. I think Instagram is really the method where you can see my work. I do 2 or 3 posts a day, and I'm also an amateur photographer, so my stories are always my own photographic images.
Excellent. Garrow, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your absolutely stunning work with the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, David. It's been such a pleasure and such an honor to be included with this group of amazing, amazing people.
Oh, well, we're so happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, next, we're going to meet Sue Hitzmann. Let me tell you a little bit about her. So Sue Hitzmann is the creator of the MELT method, a revolutionary self-treatment technique that helps people get out and stay out of chronic pain, avoid injuries, and boost athletic performance. A nationally recognized educator, manual therapist, exercise physiologist, and founding member of the Fascia Research Society, Sue is the author of the New York Times best-selling book, The MELT Method, which has been translated into 8 languages. Her second book, MELT Performance, was published by Harper One in April 2019. Sue has appeared on The Dr. Oz Show, Nightline, Good Morning America, The Rachel Ray Show, and Live with Regis and Kelly. And the MELT method has been featured in magazines such as Self, More, and Prevention. Without further ado, Sue Hitzmann. Hello.
Hi, David. Nice to see you.
It's wonderful to see you, and thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
So, Sue, in your book, The MELT Method, you share with your readers that by devoting 10 minutes 3 times a week, we can begin to eliminate the effects of tension and stress caused by daily living.
Yes, indeed.
Tell us how we do this.
Well, there is a renewable resource in our body called fascia, or connective tissue. And even if you eat right and you exercise, what recent science is revealing is that connective tissue breaks down and is one of the key factors that causes us to feel old. It's what makes your joints feel stiff and achy. It is what creates wrinkles on your skin and starts to show the signs of cellulite and what we know is that daily living causes these effects. And through melt and even what Carol mentioned, nutritious eating and water-filled foods can help to replenish the fascial system, which is where collagen is developed. The connective tissue is the collagen matrix. So melt was a simple self-care technique that I designed to help my clients get out and stay out of chronic pain. Just as you say, it doesn't take a long time in a day, but to learn how to rehydrate their fascia, because daily living causes this cellular dehydration. And even if you don't have pain, if any of your listeners are hearing this, even if you don't have pain, we've all experienced the daily impact of our fascial system and the breakdown. Like when you sit for long periods of time and you get up and you feel like you aged 30 years because your joints don't work as well as they did when you sat down, you feel stiff. That is the signs of this fascial dehydration. And because when we get up and we move around, we stop feeling that, we think it's normal. And I say, well, even if you stop feeling that stiffness, that issue in your connective tissue has not gone away, but you can replenish it. And that's what melt is really all about, is how to rejuvenate the fascial system from day to day and keep it resilient so that you can lead an active, healthy life at any age.
So what are the things we do in life that are common contributors to experiencing pain, creating tension, etc.?
Well, I mean, I would say that the most common thing is overuse, misuse, disuse, and aging. So, I think that the way that we manage stress and how we see stress, you see a lot of magazines say, we're going to, abolish your stress, eliminate stress. And I'm like, well, life is stress. So you can't really get rid of it. But the restore regulator that's in our body, we can actually rejuvenate. So I think poor sleep habits, poor diet, not having a good quality relationship with yourself, because if you're not, saying, I love me, then how can you love anyone else? And I think that we oftentimes are not leading our authentic lives. We're not really finding our joy from day to day. And these are things that can contribute to our brain producing the alarm, because 100% of the time it is your brain that's sending you a message that something's not right in your body. And I always say the way that we tend to manage pain is like pop a pill, tune it out, but if you think of your brain's pain signal like the fire alarm going off when your toaster's on fire, a lot of us walk over to the fire alarm and take the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire. So we really have to learn how to listen to our bodies more appropriately, and to really on a day-to-day basis go into our bodies and care for ourselves, and make ourselves first, because I think that's really the thing that we do the least. We make everybody else more important than us, and I think that's one of the key factors that causes persistent pain problems.
So what do these 10 minutes 3 times a week look like?
Well, I have a video I can show you if you want to see a little bit of what melt is. And I mean, just in general, we use these soft rollers. I'm sure everybody's seen a roller. Ours is very soft. We use balls and rollers to do this. And I'll share my screen here, and I'll show you, let's see, host disabled attendee screen sharing. Oh, you actually have I don't know if you can change that, but I can't share my screen. But in general, I can explain it. We basically use mindful meditation practice and myofascial techniques. So using gentle compression and very, very internal body movement techniques. We use these soft balls to restore and rehydrate the tissues. So if people have used a hard roller before, it's a very different process. But again, it's a very focused practice to just touch our bodies more, because I think that especially in this particular climate, I'm somebody who gets massages and acupuncture, and suddenly nobody's touching me except myself. I'm out there hugging trees just to feel that energy of something living next to me. So I think that one thing that melt really does is it brings us back inside our bodies to sense what we feel. And what melt, we call it the 4 R's of melt: reconnect, rebalance, rehydrate, and release. And the reconnect techniques are assessment techniques to actually learn what this accumulated stress, what we like to call stuck stress in fascia, feels like, rather than focusing on your pain, how to rebalance the regulators of our nervous system so that our body stops sounding the alarm, how to rehydrate our fascia through gentle compression and tension techniques, and then how to release some of the unnecessary tension that gets trapped in our neck, our low back, and our hands and feet and along our spine. So Melt, really the treatments, I have an app, and every week we put out a new video for 3 classes: pain, performance, and lifestyle. So if you have a pain problem, you can learn a treatment to focus on your specific pain issues. If you are an athlete and you want to learn how to prepare your body more appropriately, as well as restore your body after your performance so that you mitigate the chances of having repetitive stress injuries. And then we also have lifestyle, like for those of us that sit at a desk, we have like Melt for the desk sentence, Melt for sleeping booty, so that we aren't losing the resilience of the tissues that keep us upright, making our skin look more lifted, making our joints and our muscles feel more supple and mobile. And that's basically the process of the methodology.
What do you say to the person who doesn't like to exercise? How do you help someone find motivation?
Well, first of all, Melt's not an exercise program, but I think for somebody who says, I don't exercise, I think that we all think like, I have to go to a gym. I got to get on a treadmill. I have to like do something. And really, just making an intention to find a staircase and walk up with some intention to walk outside and walk faster than you normally would, that is exercise. And what's just most important that everyone needs to do more is move. Really, aging is a factor of less mobility, less out into the open, and we really just need to get out there and move. And you can do this, and you don't need to be there for 2 hours. You could break it up in a day. You could get up and turn on some loud music, something that you love, and just groove in your own house. You could find a friend and go out for a 10-minute walk outside in the afternoon, and then just before you have dinner, go for another 10-minute walk. And those are really important, that people realize that exercise is not something to just lose weight, right? We're not just eating well so that we lose weight. We want to think not about diets. We want to think about nutrition. We don't want to think exercise, we want to think lifestyle choices. So movement is what's essential. If what you want to do, and who doesn't, lead an active, healthy, pain-free life, movement is the most important component of that. Sipping water frequently, and again, eating water-filled foods. Those are the things that everyone needs to do. So anyone can do that, and we all should.
You spoke about meditation earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Can this be done anywhere?
Yes, that's the nice thing about Melt, is you can do it in your home, you can do it when you're on the go, and even if you don't have the Melt products, you can even learn how to do some of the Melt method without the products. And when it comes to mindful meditation, I don't think a lot of people realize, but most often the reason that we have pain, why we have depression, anxiety, is because we are not really present. We're not living in the present moment. We're ruminating into the past. We're wishing we had done. We're fearful of our future. People will say, I hear people all the time right now saying, I can't wait until things go back to normal. And I said, the more you say that, the more you're going to be upset when it never does, because we can't go back. There is no back. There's only forward, and nothing is going to look the way that it did because it happened, right? You can't go back in time. So meditation, whether you don't need to like sit in a lotus pose for 25 minutes. All you need to do is intentionally take a breath in and say, I know that that is my in breath. And then breathe out and say, I know that that is my out breath. And again, what's important for people to understand is that every day you breathe 28 some odd thousand times a day, and you never have to think about it. But that autonomic function that is keeping us alive is the one autonomic function that we can quickly take over with our mind. And in doing that, you bring yourself back to the present moment. And that can really help you to recognize what your body is really wanting, what will help you to ground yourself, to stay rooted in yourself, and to come back to the self, which is, again, the first step in getting out of pain. We've got to go in our bodies to get out of pain. You can't tune it out or take a pill to eliminate it. It doesn't work that way.
Sue, what motivates you?
Oh gosh, people like Carol motivate me. Listening to you guys motivates me. I think watching what's happening in our climate and recognizing that so many people are suffering, and what we have to remember is suffering is a choice. And so when I see these things, I really get motivated to want to jump up and down and tell people we can do better. We are here to do better. And I just am in a constant state of just wanting to share and get people up and moving, because we can do this, and together we can do it better.
Wonderful. Sue, how do we follow you?
Well, I'm on social media everywhere as well. I would go to @MELT_METHOD, MELT method. We're on Facebook and Instagram. I do a lot of lives every week, sharing the MELT method and giving tips and techniques. The website that I have is meltmethod.com, and you can find out all about our online courses and our app and the products that we have, and join in on the movement of self-care as being part of what makes yourself better. And
lastly, is there one thing you'd like us to do today to start getting into this mindset, this MELT mindset?
I would say I would like for everybody to sip water more frequently. I'll give you the best tip I can. Let's just say this was a liter of water. You would be better served sipping a liter of water and making it last 3 hours, rather than drinking a liter of water and not drinking again for 3 hours. If you want your body to cellularly function well, you want to keep your cells healthy, sipping water more frequently is important. And get up and move. Self-care is not an option. It's a thing that we must do. We must care for ourselves. We're not taught this. So self-care for yourself, look in the mirror and say, I love me. You can't love someone else unless you can honestly look in the mirror and say, I am love, and I deserve to be loved, and I love myself. That's where it starts. Get up and move. Do things for you, and don't think it's selfish. It's really the important thing that makes you so beautiful in the world, is that the more I give to myself, the more I can give to others.
Sue, that is fantastic advice. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate all that you do.
Yes, and thank you for making me look so beautiful so often, and thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom of colors and shapes and styles and everything, and just to all of the other guests. That was wonderful. I'm so motivated to clean out my closet again.
We're all sharing advice today. So I want to thank Sue Hitzmann. I want to thank Garrow Kedigian, and also Carol Alt for today. I want to thank our audience for joining us for Feel Good Beauty, and you can follow the show on the David Zyla YouTube channel. Thank you so much.